Okay, let's unpack this. A life lived on a scale that's, well, it's hard to even fathom sometimes. Not just the ambition, the innovation, but also just the sheer number of people orbiting around it.
Yeah.
Today, we're doing a deep dive into this unfolding story around Elon Musk's expanding family and the role of this guy, Jared Birchall, who people are calling his fixer.
And what really jumps out, I think, is the level of organization that these recent reports suggest. It sounds like a system almost designed to manage these really personal things with a kind of control most people just don't encounter.
Right.
So our mission here is to, pull together the key info from all sorts of places, news articles, investigations, online chatter, basically give you the clearest picture we can without you having to wade through everything yourself.
Exactly. We've looked at CinemaBlend, TechCrunch, Fast Company, Business Insider, stuff that started in the Wall Street Journal and got picked up elsewhere. A Wiki One page on Birchall himself, a Daily Beast piece, some interesting Reddit threads, and even a YouTube video transcript that had a pretty unique take.
It's quite a mix.
Yeah, and at the center, obviously, Elon Musk, his approach to family is definitely making headlines.
Yep.
And this Jared Birchall figure, maybe not a household name, but sounds like he's absolutely central to managing the, let's say, complexities of Musk's world.
Well, if you step back, it's a really fascinating case study, isn't it? How power and influence kind of intersect with these incredibly personal choices. It raises all sorts of questions about the mechanisms used to keep things private, shape the story, when you're dealing with something as basic as family.
So let's dive into the core of it. These reports about the growing family and Birchall's alleged role as this fixer. CinemaBlend has details on Ashley St. Clair's claim. She says Musk is the father of her child Romulus, born last fall.
Right.
And here's where it gets really interesting. This report, and it's referencing the Wall Street Journal, it paints Birchall as the guy handling the financial and privacy deals. That's the quote. For women who have had children with Musk.
That points to a very structured approach, doesn't it? It's not just typical co-parenting stuff. This feels like something deliberately managed, maybe on a bigger scale.
Yeah.
Having someone specifically tasked with negotiations like that, it suggests a definite strategy.
And the reporting details of the offer to St. Clair are just pretty wild. We're talking potentially $15 million for a house and expenses, plus $100,000 a month, every month, until the kid turns 21.
Wow.
But it was apparently dependent on some really specific things, mainly her staying completely silent about Musk and the child.
So these NDAs, these non-disclosure agreements, they seem absolutely central to how these situations are being handled. The money's obviously huge, but like you see here, it comes with these really tight restrictions on what the mothers can actually say.
Right. And the specifics, according to CinemaBlend, they went even further. She apparently wouldn't be allowed to say anything negative about Musk, but no similar restriction on him. And reportedly, no guarantee of extra cash if Romulus got seriously ill. No trust fund. No life insurance for the child if Musk died before he turned 21.
So a massive payout, but potentially leaving her and the child quite vulnerable down the line.
Yeah, exactly. What does that specificity tell us? Is it really just about privacy? Or is it more about, controlling the story and limiting future obligations?
That's a really important question. That lack of balance in the agreement, the limits on future support, it does make you wonder what the main goal is. Privacy gets mentioned a lot with NDAs, sure, but these details, they point pretty strongly towards protecting one person's interests above everything else.
And what's really striking is that St. Clair apparently said no, refused to sign.
Right.
Her reason, again, per CinemaBlend, was she didn't want her son feeling like a secret, which is, that's a powerful stand to take.
It really is. And then after that, a paternity test apparently confirmed at 99.99999% probability Musk is the father.
So the science backs up the claim.
Yeah, it confirms the biological reality that the NDA was designed to, keep quiet.
And the money side reportedly changed pretty drastically after she started talking publicly. CinemaBlend says the $50 million house offer, gone. Monthly payments. Dropped to $40,000, then apparently down again to $20,000.
Okay, so that really draws a line connecting the initial offer to the expectation of silence, doesn't it?
It certainly seems that way. A direct consequence, perhaps, for speaking out. It shows the kind of leverage these agreements potentially hold. And interestingly, TechCrunch also chimed in, backing up the Wall Street Journal's reporting, suggesting Musk might have fathered even more than the 14 kids we know about.
More than 14? Wow.
Yeah, sources in that report hint the real number could be significantly higher. which, if true, points to maybe a wider pattern here, a system.
Definitely. If those reports are accurate, it implies there's a whole process in place for managing these relationships with multiple women, probably involving similar deals brokered by Birchall. The potential scale is, well, something else.
The TechCrunch piece also really hammers home Birchall's role in the practical side of Musk's growing family. Drafting NDAs, being a point person for some of the mothers to talk to.
Right.
It paints him as deeply involved in these very, very personal areas of Musk's life.
Being a contact, a sounding board, that implies more than just legal and financial stuff, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Suggests he might be managing expectations, navigating some pretty complex personal dynamics.
And there's this one reported quote from Birchall to St. Clair. TechCrunch mentions it too. He apparently told her that going the legal route with Musk always leads to a worse outcome for that woman than what it would have been otherwise.
Ooh, that doesn't sound like neutral advice.
No. It sounds like a pretty stark warning.
Sure.
But isn't the legal system supposed to protect people? What's it say about Musk's power if going outside the system is supposedly the better choice?
That's a really critical point. Birchall's comment certainly suggests a major power imbalance, doesn't it? And that maybe using the official legal channels could be seen as, well, a bad move for the women involved.
It kind of reinforces the idea that these private deals are pushed as the more practical option, even if they're not necessarily the fairest.
Now, that YouTube transcript we mentioned, it offered a pretty different angle. It portrayed Birchall as kind of orchestrating this behind-the-scenes baby mama drama. That was the phrase used.
Okay.
And it even drew parallels to, historical polygamy situations, focusing on the secrecy, the stated reason of needing to increase the population, which Musk has talked about publicly.
Right, the underpopulation crisis.
Yeah, and just the power dynamics involved.
Well, historical parallels can be tricky, but those themes, the lack of transparency, the focus on having kids, one central figure coordinating it all, you can see why someone might draw that comparison.
The transcript also had this alleged quote from Musk to St. Clair while she was pregnant, talking about bringing in other women, using surrogates to have more kids faster. He reportedly said, "We need to use surrogates."
Which lines up perfectly with his public statements about birth rates, doesn't it?
It does. Suggests a very deliberate, almost, systematic plan for family expansion.
And adding another layer, St. Clair apparently tweeted that Musk was trying to gag her with these agreements while using his own platform, X, which he owns,
Right.
to push out derogatory messages, which highlights a potential imbalance in who gets to speak and how.
Yeah, that allegation points to a real potential asymmetry, doesn't it? One person is contractually silenced while the other can still shape the public story through their own massive platform.
Okay, so that covers the family situation and Birchall's alleged role there. Let's switch gears a bit and look at who Jared Birchall actually is.
Okay.
The Wiki1 entry gives a decent overview. Born 74, currently CEO of Neuralink, CFO of XAI, managing director of Excession LLC, which is basically Musk's family office, managing his private wealth.
Right, a key role.
And he's on the board of the Boring Company and the Musk Foundation. That's a lot of hats.
It really is. Holding those kind of top roles across so many of Musk's companies, these really ambitious, diverse ventures, it points to a huge amount of trust, doesn't it? And just running a family office for someone like Musk is a massive job on its own.
His early life, according to Wiki1, also pretty interesting. One of 11 kids, they had a family singing group, the Birchall Family Singers.
Ah, really?
Yeah. Eagle Scout, Mormon Missionary Service, graduated from BYU in '99. Paints a picture of a very traditional upbringing, maybe.
It does seem that way, which makes his current role navigating Musk's world potentially even more interesting. How common is that kind of compartmentalization, do you think, where someone from that background operates in such an unconventional space?
That's a great question. I mean, people operate in different spheres all the time, right?
True. And in these high-stakes worlds, loyalty and discretion are probably valued above almost anything else. That might lead people to do things that don't perfectly align with their personal background. Plus, the systems that reward success and protect wealth can kind of create environments where that compartmentalizing just happens more often.
His finance career before Musk is worth noting, too. Goldman Sachs, then Merrill Lynch, where, according to Wiki1, citing FINRA records.
The financial regulator.
Right. He was terminated in 2010. Reason given, sending correspondence to a client without management approval. Then he went to Morgan Stanley from 2010 to 2016.
That termination, even though it was a while ago, it does raise a small flag maybe about professional judgment or following the rules, especially given the huge financial responsibilities he has now.
But it seems his time at Morgan Stanley was crucial. WikiWan says he was key in arranging some massive loans for Musk, like 9 figures when Musk was supposedly in a tight spot financially. That's a pretty good way to get into someone's inner circle, I imagine.
Absolutely. Pulling off that kind of financing at a critical time, that would build a really strong bond, you'd think. Trust, dependence. It shows he could make deals happen, even with that earlier issue at Merrill.
So Musk hires him in 2016, sets up Excession LLC, this family office. And since then, his role just keeps expanding. CEO of Neuralink, as we said, but WikiWand and Fast Company suggest that's mostly on paper.
Right, not day-to-day operations. Reddit discussions picked up on that too.
Yeah. It's this pattern, isn't it? Holding CEO or CFO titles across multiple companies, but maybe without direct operational control in all of it.
It is interesting, and those Reddit threads raise fair points, like how much expertise does someone with a wealth management background really have in, say, neurotechnology?
Good question. Beyond the official titles, though, he's constantly called Musk's fixer, his right-hand man. WikiWand lists stuff like managing travel, hiring bodyguards, selling Musk's houses. It seems like a really broad mix of personal and logistical stuff.
Yeah, that wide range just underlines how central he seems to be to Musk's everyday life and operations. A key problem solver across the board.
And his role in that defamation case, the one involving the British caver, that's pretty revealing too. WikiWand and the YouTube transcript mentioned Birchall paid a private investigator using a fake name at first. Jim Brickhouse, apparently.
Jim Brickhouse. Seriously?
Apparently, to dig up dirt on the caver. Then he emailed from his real account later and said in a deposition he had an instinct to protect Musk. What does that incident tell us about the fixer job?
Well, it highlights a willingness to use, let's say, unconventional methods to protect Musk's image. The fake name suggests wanting secrecy, right? But then using his real email shows direct involvement and this clear commitment to protecting Musk, even if the actions themselves look ethically questionable.
The Daily Beast article, mentioned by WikiWand, also touched on Birchall being involved when Igor Kurganov left Musk's inner circle, apparently because of FBI concerns. So it sounds like Birchall might also act as a kind of gatekeeper for Musk's relationships, too.
Yeah, that adds another layer. Protecting Musk's interests seems to go beyond just money and logistics, maybe into vetting his whole network.
And another detail from WikiWand: Birchall apparently exclusively manages Musk's crypto trades.
Exclusively. Wow. That's a lot of control over those kinds of assets, especially given how volatile crypto can be.
Yeah, signifies huge trust, or maybe just wanting it all centralized with one guy. Then there's the Twitter acquisition, now X. Birchall was apparently right in the thick of it.
Yeah.
Buyout talks, arranging the billions in loans needed. That's according to WikiWand and Fast Company.
Right.
And then reportedly involved in planning layoffs and okaying spending at Twitter afterwards.
His involvement in something that huge, that complex, it shows he can handle massive deals and strategy, even if his background isn't strictly tech or social media.
And he keeps popping up in new ventures. WikiWand says Birchall incorporated XAI in 2023. He's the secretary, reportedly the CFO too.
Yeah.
Reddit mentioned that as well.
So he's there from the ground floor on the latest stuff too.
Seems like it.
Yeah.
Underscores his ongoing importance, his ability to adapt across Musk's whole empire. And then post-2024 election, Musk was a big supporter. Financially, WikiWand reports Birchall was advising the Trump transition team on space policy, AI, helping form councils, even interviewing people for State Department jobs.
Really? So moving into the political sphere too.
Looks like it. Reflects Musk's growing influence there, maybe, and Birchall, again, acting as the trusted advisor, but now on policy stuff too.
Interesting extension of the role.
On the personal side, WikiWand says he's married, 5 kids, active Latter-day Saint, moved to Austin, used to be a counselor in his church's bishopric, reinforces that image, the devout family guy. Which creates this really stark contrast, doesn't it, with the reports about him managing all these complex personal deals for Musk. How do people square those things?
It's complicated, isn't it? People often juggle roles that seem contradictory from the outside. Personal beliefs, professional duties, they can clash. People find ways to compartmentalize. And you can't discount loyalty, money, wanting to stay in that powerful circle. Those things play a big part too.
That Reddit thread we saw really poked at this. It highlighted how Birchall doesn't seem to have deep experience actually running companies or in pure accounting, despite all these CFO, CEO titles.
Right.
The thread suggested maybe that structure helps minimize scrutiny somehow.
Those are definitely fair observations. Putting someone whose main background is wealth management into all these top financial and executive roles across so many different companies. It is unusual. It makes you look at the leadership structure across Musk's ventures.
The Fast Company piece described Birchall as Musk's quiet contrast, prefers staying behind the scenes. It also backed up his role in the Twitter loans, handling payments from Musk's column, being the go-between with the mothers, setting up secrecy deals, buying property in Austin.
So really solidifying that picture. The discreet operator managing the messy realities of Musk's public and private life.
Exactly. He seems like the indispensable behind-the-scenes guy, handling all the intricate, sometimes really sensitive stuff. Fast Company also put his annual earnings somewhere between $1 and $3 million, maybe even more now.
Which shows how much Musk values his services, his loyalty. That kind of pay reflects the complexity and the importance of the job he does.
The YouTube transcript went deeper into his Mormon background, too, his efforts to keep his own life private online, and this perception that maybe he prioritizes protecting Musk over, say, the ethical treatment of the women involved, especially using the NDAs.
Yeah, and the ethics of using NDAs that way are significant. They have legitimate uses, of course, but in situations with big power imbalances, they can be used to silence people, to hide certain things.
Definitely raises questions about transparency and fairness. There was this one quote in the YouTube transcript, reportedly from Birchall, saying he's happily married but feels like he's been through 3 divorces because of the work he does for Musk in family court.
Wow. That gives you a little peek into how intense and maybe emotionally draining that kind of work must be, even if you're managing it professionally.
Yeah. The transcript also talked about how the NDA offered to St. Clair was supposedly really one-sided, favoring Musk.
Right.
And it mentioned the Mormon Church profiled Birchall in the Deseret News, even with all this controversy swirling, which kind of highlights a possible disconnect between his public image in his community and these allegations about his work. How do people or institutions handle conflicting stories about powerful figures?
It's tricky. Reputation influence, different views on what actually happened, it all gets mixed up. Public figures often have different personas for different parts of their lives, right? And institutions might have their own reasons for focusing on certain narratives.
The YouTube transcript also pointed out these contrasting views of Birchall. Some colleagues see him as straight-laced, ethical, versus how his actions look in the Musk context. And it brought up that Merrill Lynch termination again, the unauthorized correspondence thing from 2010, adds another layer to his professional past.
These conflicting views just show how hard it is to really judge someone's character or actions, especially when they're operating under that kind of pressure with such high stakes.
The transcript reinforced him as the main contact for women who get pregnant by Musk, that gatekeeper role again.
Right.
And it had an expert calling him a fixer who enables Musk's patterns rather than challenging them. That feels like a key point. Does someone in that position have a duty to give honest, maybe difficult advice, even if the boss doesn't want to hear it?
That's a fundamental ethical question for any advisor, isn't it? Especially with powerful people whose actions affect so many. That line between enabling and managing can get really blurry. And the risk that a fixer just ends up helping problematic behavior continue is definitely real.
There was also a reported comment from Birchall about dealing with mentally unstable people who misremember things, implying maybe a pattern of secret deals and trying to discredit people who speak out.
That kind of language is concerning. It can be used to just dismiss valid concerns, make people feel even more isolated.
Yeah, it undermines credibility, creates a narrative that favors one side.
Exactly.
The transcript also brought up Grimes' past allegations. Musk keeping their child from her, ignoring her during a health issue, suggests managing Musk's family life isn't always smooth, even with his more public partners. And Birchall was apparently present during the custody battle with Grimes, too. So his involvement goes right into these really personal, potentially messy legal fights.
Suggests his role isn't just setting up the deals, but also dealing with the fallout, the conflicts that can happen later.
Right. And finally, that YouTube transcript covered Musk's philosophy needing to make new humans, address population decline.
The justification, perhaps.
Yeah, seemingly the rationale for having lots of kids with different partners, his admission about being a sperm donor. It mentioned Birchall texting St. Clair while she was in labor.
Wow.
Asking her not to put Musk's name on the birth certificate. The money dropping when she went public. The claim that NDAs are for the child's safety and security, contrasted with Musk being seen publicly with one of his kids.
That contrast is interesting.
And it mentions Sia is another mother of Musk's kids, living at this huge $35 million place, allegedly meant for multiple mothers. Plus, influencer Tiffany Fong's experience with Musk's DMs, financial incentives, and this idea from some Mormon teachings about fathers having primary financial responsibility.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
It is. All these threads weave together this really complex, sometimes contradictory story. You've got Musk's stated reasons, the reported experiences of the mothers, Birchall navigating it all, and then maybe personal beliefs or religious interpretations influencing things too. It's intricate.
So wrapping up this deep dive, we've looked at these alleged secret arrangements, the really significant kind of sprawling role Jared Birchall plays in managing Elon Musk's incredibly complex personal life, and this striking gap between public images and reported private actions.
Yeah, the things that really jump out are the potential number of children, the very specific, almost restrictive details in those proposed agreements, and like you said, that dissonance between Birchall's public image, the devout family man, and what he's reportedly doing for Musk.
Which brings us to a big question for you listening. What are the broader implications here? Not just for the people directly involved, but for how we think about power, privacy, accountability when it comes to really influential figures.
Yeah, it's worth thinking about the motivations. What drives people to set up these kinds of complex personal lives? And what does it say about the systems, the dynamics that allow it to happen?
And a final thought to leave you with. In this whole tangled web of relationships and deals, is that fixer role ultimately about enabling or managing? And what does that tell us about the sort of unseen machinery that operates in the world of the ultra-wealthy?
Definitely something to ponder.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.